Good evening and welcome. I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. I am Rudy El-Khoury, Dean of the School of Architecture. This is our first evening in the Spring Salon series. Every February, we devote every Thursday of the month to these outdoor gathering where we can have a informal discussion about topics that are important for our research. So this is a research-focused series meant to create new connections and to promote the work that we are doing at the school. And it's all masterminded by our Associate Dean of Research, Sonia Chow. Please come here to the stage. And she's going to tell you more about her curatorial vision and introduce our guests. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you, Dean El-Khoury, for always being so supportive of this Salon series. So as the Dean said, this is an opportunity for us to think about research opportunities here at the School of Architecture, either to celebrate that which is already undergoing or to have conversations that might spur new initiatives related to research. This year, we have an opportunity to work and co-host this event with the U.S. Department of HUD, their Southeast Region Office, and I'll introduce those individuals in just a moment. We want to take this opportunity to welcome you back to the School of Architecture, but also to remind you that this is the first of a series. We will be meeting here in this space every Thursday evening for the month of February to continue the conversations. The forthcoming sessions will look at different aspects of affordable housing. So last year when we were wrapping up our Salon series, Gloria was Shanahan, who is with the local office of HUD, was here with us. And she and I looked at each other and we said, well, what if we did this together next year? And that's how we got here. So I want to first and foremost thank Gloria for all of her work in making that happen. And I would be remiss if I didn't also thank Miss Madeline Lee, who is a colleague of mine here at the School of Architecture, who has also been so very helpful in co-curating this whole event along with Gloria and myself. So thank you, Maddie, for your hard work as well. So Gloria is going to join me very briefly to welcome Tiffany Cobb to the stage. Tiffany is the new Deputy Director for the South region of U.S. HUD. And Gloria doesn't want to come up here, so I'll do it on my own. I'm sure I'm getting that. That's incomplete, isn't it? But I want to thank Tiffany because she's also been very gracious and really embraced this idea. And so I want to thank her also for having been so very generous and supporting this initiative, which we hope here at the School of Architecture will be one of many in the years to come. So Tiffany, just a few words from your perspective.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you. So I am Tiffany Cobb, Deputy Regional Administrator for HUD Southeast Region. So our office is in Atlanta. So of course here with the Regional Administrator Collins. And I am just very excited to be here. And first, I do again just want to thank Sonia for all your work and also for inviting us to this opportunity. I want to thank Gloria Shanahan, my team here in Miami, as well as Madeline Lee and Dean Courier. Did I say that correctly? Yes. Thank you so much. And also thank you to the University of Miami School of Architecture. When we had the meeting about this, I was so excited and I kind of just told Gloria to run with it. She brought it to my attention. And it's such an important topic about affordable housing, resiliency, housing supply, especially in Southern Florida. So I'm just very excited for this collaboration. I do even see it, I've been talking even as a model for other states that's under our region to partner with universities to be able to do this type of work. So thank you so much. And I know it will be successful. And I'm looking forward to the other salons in February and also the continued partnership moving forward. So thank you so much. And now I would like to introduce the moderator for tonight, Mr. Jose Cintron.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. So the job of the moderator is to get out of the way and let the expert speak, right? But I'm going to tell one little story of Pepito. So Pepito, which little Jose, by the way, but so I'm making this whole story up, so it doesn't matter. But I'll call myself out. So Pepito is walking down the street with his little red wagon, and all of a sudden, one of the wheels of the wagon falls off. So Pepito goes, "Damn!" I told the story once in front of the governor. The governor said, "You mean dang?" And I said, "The story doesn't work so well if I say dang. So excuse me." So Pepito said, "Damn." Now, it turns out he did this right in front of a church. And the pastor of the church was right there in the grass. And he said, "Pepito, I know your parents, their parishioners here. You really should never curse when something bad happens. I mean, look around. You have a wagon. You know how many people don't even have a wagon? You know how blessed you are? Instead, you should say, 'Father, please help me, for I am blessed.' And Father, God will help you." Now, it turns out I'm going to be able to fix this wagon for you because you broke down right in front of me. But remember, from now on, never curse. Account for your blessings and thank God for your blessings. "Yes, Pastor." Sure enough, the pastor fixes the wheel, puts it back in. Pepito says thank you, like the good boy that he really is. Walks again with his wagon. So the pastor's a really good pastor, but not a real good mechanic. So all four wheels fall off the thing. So Pepito looks back and says, "Father, please help me, for I am blessed." And sure enough, all four wheels back on the wagon. He looks at the pastor, walks away, and the pastor says, "Damn." So that's how we feel when we're doing affordable housing. You have to have all four wheels on the wagon. You have local government, you have state government, you have federal government, you have the private sector, which includes the developer, which includes the banks that help finance the deal. And if everything falls into place and all four wagons roll in the same direction, you get to have a ribbon cutting where everybody says, "Damn," right? Okay, I'm glad you almost all joined in on time. But anyway, so we have 5 experts here on affordable housing. And it is indeed in short supply, and in fact, it continues to be in greater short supply as we continue to expand the definition of what affordable housing is, because we have come to realize that affordable housing is not just for extremely low-income folks, but it's for our workforce as well. It is for our teachers, it is for our firemen, it's for our police persons. I said firemen, what's the right term? Firefighters. There you go. All right, so I did it right. And so as you continue to expand the list of affordable housing, the shorter in supply our available housing is. So it really does take all the efforts of all of these sectors of our community, and it's a very complex thing to try to do, to create affordable housing, to preserve affordable housing, to make sure people don't get evicted from their housing, to make sure people don't get taken advantage of as housing is redeveloped. All of those issues complicate the equations that go into making affordable housing. And each one of the folks on this panel has some experience with different parts of that equation. So without any further discussion, I'm going to introduce first Alex Baena, who is the Director of Public Housing and Community Development for Miami-Dade County. Has had 10 years in the private sector experience building affordable housing, has had 2 decades working in the affordable housing business from the government perspective. He is, he likes to say he's the real Mr. 305 because 305 is in his heart, and in fact, he will tell you that he was born in a hospital room number 305, fittingly. So I'll turn over to Alex, and he can give us some of the background of some of the challenges / opportunities that we face.
Thank you for that, Jose. make it easier that way. So thank you everybody for being here. And as Jose mentioned, and the challenge that we all have is delivering and producing. So David came to our office today from Office of HUD, a CPD, and we had a very good holistic conversation. And that conversation always starts is, what is the most critical piece that is required to build and develop land? I mean, develop housing. Anybody know? Land, right? That's the first thing that we have. And we have the beautiful Atlantic Ocean to the east. We have the Everglades to the west. So we have the sharks and the alligators. And we only have a certain swath of where we could build. And that is the big challenge that we are facing. If anybody's gone to the Biltmore Hotel, and if you haven't, I recommend it. But on the first floor, there's a picture of the Biltmore Hotel, and it shows all of Coral Gables. This is 1937. There's all the land in the world. This is less than 100 years ago, right? You fast forward to today, and you're sitting or standing right now in the most expensive piece of real estate in all of Miami-Dade County, and that is Coral Gables, Florida, and the University of Miami as you see it today, right? So those are the big challenges that we have as a county and we're facing, is that the availability of land is very difficult and challenging for us, but we're coming up with innovative ways on doing adaptive reuse. And our mayor, Honorable Mayor Levine Cava, and our Board of County Commissioners has really taken a very progressive approach to development. So we have, last year we passed the RTZ, which is a rapid transit zone, which allows increased density around all of our transportation nodes. So if you'll go down US 1, right? You'll see the train, and then you'll see a lot of the housing pieces that are going around those transit nodes that help alleviate the traffic of where we're at. You know, our planners back in the day, they thought that Miami-Dade County would end at Dadeland and would end at Miami downtown, right? And we have sprawled to the west 1.5 million, and to the north another 1 million, and we just keep growing, and we don't have that infrastructure to spur that growth. So it's not only housing, it's public infrastructure and transportation that all tie in together. So, no. Yeah, right. So all those things, and we are with the help of our friends at the county and the city, and obviously with legislation and our funding from the federal government, we're trying to be innovative with our resources on how we look at them and how we're able to leverage them and how we look at them. So the most difficult thing that we do from an affordable housing standpoint and as an agency is not the bricks and mortars. That's fairly easy. It's the social economic factors that we deal with on a daily basis, right? And it's providing that upward mobility that we need to provide and provide that safety and that fabric of our community. So I call it the alligator mouth. It's probably, we don't do gators here because, we're in cane territory. But the cost of living in Miami-Dade County has gone up over 100% over the last 5 years. Wages have not grown and affordability has gone down. So that gap is becoming very, very big, and it's hard to feed that mouth and keep it from not being so hungry. So why I say that is because part of what we do is try to create more job opportunities, help to create growth, and help to ensure that the whole ecosystem of Miami-Dade County needs to survive. So, teachers need to find a place to live. Our public service employees, our nurses, not only our firefighters and our public administrators, but everybody as a whole. Even where we're at today in Coral Gables, 20 years ago, if you were a teacher, you would live around Coral Gables Youth Center. You had an apartment, you would live there. That doesn't exist anymore. And we're losing that. And if we lose that, we lose what makes Miami special. So we got to keep on fighting. We got to think of innovative ways of how do we produce more housing? How do we come up with solutions? And that's why we're here. Nobody has a monopoly on ideas. So the more ideas that we get and the more we throw at it, the more that we'll be able to produce and deliver for you.
So this is a challenge. We have 45 minutes allotted to this panel, and so with 5 renowned speakers, they each get like 5 or 6 minutes. so that we can have 15 minutes at the end to answer questions and engage in interact with all of you. So as these comments from folks spur questions, please feel free to share those questions with us when we're completed with the roundtable. Okay. So next, I want to introduce Dolores Holly, who reminded me that we've known each other for like almost 30 years. So this is like almost like a reunion. I've known 3 of these 5 folks for a lot of years, and it just goes to remind me how old I am. But beside that, so Dee is now the director of the Office of Housing Advocacy for the county, which means that she deals with, oftentimes on a daily basis, with the folks that we are not actually serving very well. The ones that actually have issues, the ones that are facing eviction, the ones that feel as though they don't know where the next meal is going to come from. That's all done in her shop. And it reminds us, when we talk about all the brick and mortar, which, like you say, is easy, though it's not totally easy, but it's easier, to remember why we're here, why we do this. And we do this for the families that Dee helps on a daily basis. So to give that a bit of that perspective, I turn it over to Dolores Holly.
Thank you. I'm going to stand if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, she deserves applause.
Thank you. Actually, I thought that Jose threw my name in this, but it was you, Gloria? Tiffany? Okay. So, again, I'm Dolores Holly. I am the director of the Office of Housing Advocacy. And like Jose said, my job, I have a difficult job, me and my team, because I can't do this without my team. So we have the difficult task in being what I like to call the conductor in the orchestra, right? So when we are getting residents calling us, and residents are having issues, and it used to be when a resident called, they were low, moderate income. But now, because of the housing affordability, we've had people call us that making 6 figures that is having an issue with their landlord, the landlord raising the rent $1,000, $1,200. I've been staying here. One lady told me she'd been staying here for 15 years. I'm his best tenant. This is how he repay me. And so our job is to build that coalition with everyone that you see behind me. We cannot do this job without having all the partners on board. And so when we have a resident calling that have housing conditions, and maybe they are Section 8, maybe they're not. If they're Section 8, if they're Section 8, then we call public housing or whoever the housing authority is, and we help them with that and send an inspector if they're Section 8. If they're not Section 8, then we say call code enforcement. And at times we might also make that call for them and, ask code enforcement, hey, have you taken a look at this situation? And, each municipality is different based on where they're located, right? So based on their laws and their code violations are different in every place around Miami-Dade County. And so we cannot do the job if we don't have Camilla's House, who provides a lot of our residents with rental assistance. And then what happens when Camilla's House runs out? Then I got to call public housing to get them more cash if they have it available. Sometimes they have it available, sometimes they don't. If a landlord, trying to make the landlord, hold the landlord accountable, and it's a project-based development, then I got to call HUD and ask HUD to take a look at the situation and, bring awareness to them. And so it doesn't work if we don't have those partnerships with, across the board. And at the end of the day, collaborating with our partners and even outside, like West Palm Beach, best practices, going to the affordable housing seminars and talking with each other, brainstorming. And with what we're experiencing now, this housing affordability, we have to step out of the box, right? We have to just be creative with the solutions, right? If that makes sense. And so oftentimes when we're empowering a resident to go think outside the box so they can be assisted, we have to maybe tell them, hey, for example, I had one resident, she was almost 12 months behind in her rent. That's a significant amount. A lot of programs will only help you with 6 months, maybe 3, but at the end of the day, we had ERAPs that was still open at that time. So, but ERAP was like, okay, if we have helped her, right? And so she only have about 3 months, 6 months left. So we can't do the entire 12 months. So that's where, when you call Camilla's house can do the front end and ERAP do the back end. And then that gave her, by flipping it, that gave her 2 additional months to get it on her foot. So back on her feet, I'm sorry. And so at the end of the day, we have to push the envelope. We have to step out of the box. We have to be creative, and we have to have the partners that we work with, because if we don't, then those partners, we can't help the residents, right? And sometimes thinking outside the box is helping the landlord, because sometimes helping the landlord helps the resident. What do I mean by that? So if a landlord was received a code violation and they need to do repairs, but they don't have the money to do repairs, so then hey, PACD has a program, NOAA, right? Naturally occurring affordable housing. If you utilize, this program and still keep the rents affordable, then that will turn into a grant for you. So here's some cash where you can rehab this place, keep the rents affordable. And so helping the landlord helps the resident. And so those are the kind of different things that we do, and that we will continue to do. We were created in 2022 by Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. And thank God we have a visionary mayor. And also thank God that we have a mayor that has a social work background, because that is exactly what the community needs right now, right? Because this is, I think, the first mayor that I have ever seen. I've been in the county 30 plus years, right? This is the first mayor that I have seen that has made social services programs important in our community. And again, it takes all of these partners to do what we do. And if we continue to work together, I think we can see ourselves out of this. Thank you.
Plus, she's the hardest working woman in Dade County.
So you heard all those like alphabet soup programs, right? Emergency rental assistance payment, and that's provided to us from the federal government. But we also have money provided to us from the state government, money provided to us from the county, to try to piece together the fabric to ensure that folks continue to be served. So now so thank you, Dean. So now next speaker will be Jennifer Posner, who, let me just make sure I have so she's recently joined UM's Climate Resilience Academy, but before that, she was working with the Office of Civic and Community Engagement. And as she said to me, it's all still in my bones. I still feel it in my bones. So she wants to discuss the role that housing accessibility and affordability plays in communities within the larger resilience framework. When we think of resilience and sustainability, oftentimes we think in physical terms, but there's also a whole thing about human sustainability. And that's part of the community engagement process, which is so important as we move forward to try to redevelop our communities. The single most predictive factor in success for someone in their future is what zip code they're born in. The single most predictive factor is the zip code in which they are born. And when we have neighborhoods and communities that do not provide or unable to provide supportive services, when we have communities that have such concentration of poverty that it is difficult for folks to get from one day to the next, it creates a challenge. It creates a challenge in many, many different ways, right? It complicates the equation, as I said before. So as we try to strive to redevelop communities and change that dynamic, change the fact that the concentration of poverty is making it very, very difficult for you to hear me. The concentration of poverty makes it very, very difficult for people to succeed. We want to make sure that we are able to create mixed income communities where people can strive without doing damage to the people who have suffered through all those years in those communities, right? And that takes building trust. You build trust by engaging in community engagement activities so that folks understand that, no, this isn't urban removal. This is actually changing your life through addition, not through subtraction. We're going to make your lives better, but we're going to do it right here where you live. And so that is part of the community engagement process, which I said too much already. Jennifer, please take it.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that, Jose. I think you basically covered everything that I was going to say, so thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with my with colleagues who work in public service and government. And my background is in local city government in New York, so this is a very familiar group to me. UM and the ability to work kind of in an academic institution has been really an amazing opportunity because I understand what limitations public service, what government has. It's cash strapped and it's nonstop, and the kind of file box just keeps growing. So it's been amazing to be at UM and being able to really contribute, hopefully, to helping these issues. I met Alex in my previous role when we worked with them on some of the, helping with some of the unit projecting and talking about what some of the housing development was happening to kind of demystify this a little bit and to give people information. And I think that's really where my new role in resilience, I've been kind of thinking, how do I straddle housing and resilience? Housing to me is part of the resilience puzzle. To me, I think if we, one of our, our goal at the Climate Resilience Academy is to really build capacity, leverage all of the, amazing thinkers and work that's happening here at UM, but also working with our community partners, with government, with our NGOs, with people on the ground. That is really, I think, it's an amazing opportunity to me to be able to be in a place to bring those different pieces together, because you can't do anything without all of them on board. And I've seen, when political processes, become compromised because of the engagement was not, there's not support, there's not buy-in. And so there were a couple images, I don't know if, okay, perfect. So there were a couple images I just wanted to show that I thought sort of resonated with me in terms of how we build social capital, how we bring people, truly bring people into these conversations. So this is a project that I really loved. It's called the Folded Map Project, and it's an artist in Chicago named Tanika Lewis Johnson. She took a map of Chicago and literally folded it in half. And then she took pictures of basically the same street, but north and south. So we have an image on 6329 South Paulina, 6329 North Paulina. I thought this was a really interesting way for people to learn about. I don't think until you see this, I think maybe there are some people who may not understand what what a kind of stable, healthy community looks like. And then you see it against this, and you really see, I think this juxtaposition is striking and important. And so she curated conversations with people who were interested in meeting kind of their folded map partner. So I think that is, I think there are ways to engage people to kind of have these conversations. Are they going to solve the housing problem? No, but I think by having this understanding of, their place in a city, in a community, I think this really helps to build community. The next slide seems very basic, but there was a researcher, social scientist in the 60s in New York, Holly White, who really did a laser-focused, kind of research study of how people interact in public spaces. And it's fascinating. And what he came up with, and what in New York and many other places, it seems so simple, but what he found was that people wanted to create their own places that they wanted to sit. They didn't want to sit on benches that were hammered into concrete. They wanted to move the chairs. They wanted to sit with a friend. They wanted to move away from people. It's such a simple intervention, but I think it really sort of speaks to how important it is to listen to what people need and what they say. I think that kind of support builds real trust, builds pride, builds happiness, and that is inherently resilient. That makes an inherently resilient community. And then the next one is just about kind of how we communicate and how we share our problems, our challenges, our hopefully solutions. But I just thought this image was very clear to me. Like, there's a lot, when we talk in resilience, there is a lot of sort of climate discussions. That's not where I come from. I'm not a climate scientist, so a lot of these graphs just scare me. This image to me was very approachable, and I think that is, as a planner, that's an important consideration, is how you kind of bring people along with you, how you incorporate what they're thinking and seeing and worried about, but then also, kind of communicate what research is showing. And that's where I think our, Climate Resilience Academy, School of Architecture, all of these partners are have a real opportunity to kind of help shape that engagement process and hopefully, involve more people in these conversations. So thank you.
Thank you. So that photo with Paulina, South Paulina, North Paulina, reminds me of a project. I'm also originally from New York City, and I worked for the Manhattan Borough President's Office. I guess this was 40 odd years ago. I hate to say that, but it was about 40 odd years ago. And in New York City, the neighborhoods are broken up by community boards. There are 59 community boards in New York City, right? I still remember that number. So Community Board 7, known as Manhattan Valley, northern border was 110th Street, West 110th Street. Community Board 10, southern border, known as Harlem, was 110th Street border, right? The other across the street. So we had a developer come in to the Manhattan Borough President's Office, who indicated that he wanted to build a project on Board 7's development site, but didn't want to build the project on Board 10's development site. Both sites were available for development. So we told them very clearly, I know 110th Street's a wide street, but it's not that wide. If you want to build 7, you have to build 10. That's the difference there. By the way, you can go across 110th Street now, and both towers are still standing. So sometimes it's good to stand by principles. Okay, next speaker, Armando Fana, another person who we've known for a long time. He, in fact, was the local HUD office, field office director for 10 years. He actually succeeded the person who succeeded me in that job. I won't say how many years ago, but so he decided that he could make a larger impact and feel the results by going to work directly for the city, a city, and he ended up becoming the housing director of West Palm Beach, the city of West Palm Beach, and now he's the deputy city administrator for the city of West Palm Beach, and he has some stories to tell, so tell them.
Thank you, Pepito. I mean, Jose.
Damn.
Yeah, this has been like a reunion for me. I haven't seen Jose in probably 8 years, and some other folks who are at HUD. So it's great to be here. This is actually I had not stepped foot in Coral Gables in probably 7 years, and this is the second time I've done so in 3 months. And the last time I did was at an event run by Car4 Supportive Housing, which is based out of Miami, and they do supportive housing mostly for homeless throughout the state. But their first foray out of Miami-Dade was in Palm Beach County at the city of West Palm Beach, and I worked very closely with them on a project that they did that was supportive housing for individuals coming out of homelessness with mental illness. So one of the things that I was surprised, I'm glad I'm the fourth person, but nobody's really talked about, and I'm going to talk about how we get over challenges, but challenges, real challenges, and one of them is what's called NIMBY, not in my backyard. And the reason I came to Coral Gables a couple months ago and was recognized by Car4 was because they were not used to a local government official standing arm in arm with them, facing a hostile crowd of neighbors, advocating in favor of an affordable housing project in a neighborhood. And it took a lot of difficult conversations with the neighborhood, but we finally got it through. But that is a challenge. And even when we're talking about workforce housing that is for firefighters or police officers or teachers, when you say workforce housing or affordable housing, the hair on the back of the neck of some people stands up, and it's hard to get them to get over that stigma. So that's a challenge. The availability and cost of land was a challenge when I became the director of housing in West Palm Beach. It is 10 times worse now than it was then, as is the cost of construction, the cost of labor, materials, skyrocketed post-COVID. Regulatory issues, all cities have to do comprehensive plans and abide by statutory requirements from the state. They got their own ordinances they have to deal with. They have regulatory requirements from HUD. With the money they get from HUD, they have regulatory requirements they get from state for affordable housing dollars. So there are a lot of variables that local governments and developers are dealing with when it comes to housing, and those variables have just gotten more and more difficult. So the city of West Palm Beach has embarked on sort of an experiment over the last few years. What can we do to increase the supply of housing, not just for the low-income households, but also, as was mentioned, those moderate-income households who may be making between $50,000 and $80,000 a year, who are really that missing middle that can't afford housing, particularly in areas of high concentrations of employment, which is where we need people to live and work. So some of the things we've done, and we've had these in place sometimes for a long time, and sometimes we just recently. So community redevelopment areas or agencies are areas that are carved out within certain cities in Florida, neighborhoods that are carved out where the tax increment, as the area builds up, that additional tax increment has to stay within that district. So what we've been able to do is use that additional funding in order to incentivize workforce and affordable housing, either through loans or through grants, or even through tax rebates as well, or tax refunds for property taxes. Home money is commonly used, although that's been reduced over and over from the federal government. You know, Congress has given less and less home dollars, which is HUD dollars that come to cities and counties and states for affordable housing. We have a local trust fund that we built. They had $0 when I got there, so there wasn't a whole lot to work with. What we did was get an asset that a lot of cities and counties have that I don't think they utilize as well as they should. We had hundreds of properties sitting vacant and empty for literally decades. They were off the tax rolls. We were maintaining them. So we embarked on a long journey of getting those properties back out and used, both by selling them to developers who were interested. And a lot of them were single family lots, not a lot of value at that time. They were probably worth like $50,000, $60,000, but we bundled them and were able to sell a lot of them. We donated a lot to organizations like Habitat for Humanity. But as we sold those properties, the revenues we got were then put into a local housing trust fund that we've then used to loan out dollars for development of affordable housing. That's really helped us on a lot of projects, including this beautiful project you see right here called The Grand. Totally private sector driven, The city contributed a combination of grants, loans, and property tax rebates to a tune of $15 million to get this project done. It's about 320 units, I believe. Half of them are set aside for incomes that are 120% or below the area median income. So that was a great success. It's right in downtown. I mean, we have employees that live there and walk to work. It's literally a block away from City Hall. So it was a great success. You say $15 million, that's a big investment from a local government, and it is. We're a fairly small local government. But the private sector investment in this it's a $70 million project. Where that stands now, it was vacant for probably 40 years. There was nothing there. It used to be they called the Grand because there used to be a theater there. It's a historically African-American neighborhood. There was a theater there called the Grand, was demolished probably 40, 50 years ago, and it stood vacant for all that time. Now it's a beautiful project. It's thriving. There's still challenges in that neighborhood, don't get me wrong. You go a block away, there's a lot of challenges. But people are able now, as was mentioned before, one of the challenges is where the zip code you grew up in. Now folks can grow up in downtown West Palm Beach and live and work in downtown West Palm Beach and be able to afford it. And other things we've done, expedited permitting, reducing parking requirements, fee reductions, waivers of certain fees as well. And I already mentioned the vacant-owned lands. Not only have we donated land and sold it to get money into our fund, we've also worked with developers where we had a significant piece of property, lowered the cost of the land in order to be able to get them to develop affordable housing. With, of course, we have a requirement that they develop a certain percentage and hold that over a certain number of years. Go to the next slide. So we had this initiative when our mayor came in, and that's when I got appointed as the deputy city administrator. And it was called 303. Within his first 3 years in office, we would develop 300 units of affordable housing. Well, within a year and a half, we had blown through that 300. So the goal was increased to 603. And we are now on pace to do about 950 some odd units. We won't be in 3 years, but it'll be in about 3.5. So we're pretty proud of that. Some of the things we're looking at doing now, the state recently allowed for more flexibility for development of affordable housing. We actually got ahead of that. As soon as that language started to come out, the state of Florida, we began to craft some ordinances that would allow for doubling of density in certain cases where you're doing affordable housing. We did allowing for affordable housing development within areas that were zoned industrial or zoned commercial or mixed use, and we allowed for increased density to incentivize that to happen. That's been a big reason why we've been able to create so many units in such a short period of time. The affordability period is always something that is, the advocates want in perpetuity, and the folks who are developing say 10 years. So there's always that battle. We have always tried for a minimum of 20 years, but lately we have been pushing in perpetuity. And in perpetuity really means in the life of the building, right? That's not for 1,000 years, but as long as the building is operational as a rental housing project, then we try to tack on that perpetuity for the life of the building. But you have to incentivize that, and the way we've done it either is through land donations or reduction in the cost of land, or through density bonus incentives. One other thing that I just want to touch on, because it is such a crisis all over the country, and that is not just affordable housing and workforce housing, transitional and supportive housing. We have, as you hear every day on the news, there's a crisis in this country when it comes to mental health. There's a crisis when it comes to addiction. We have a baby boomer generation that's retiring really quickly, like us. And some of them are not going to have the means to be able to afford a place to live and live out their last years in dignity. These are all things coming together at one time, and we need to have not just the brick and mortar. We got to have the support services to be able to provide those kinds of services, whether it's mental health, addiction, or just services for the elderly. That is an extremely expensive endeavor. As was said, the bricks and mortar is probably the easier part, even though it is complicated. When it comes to supportive services, that is where the government plays a huge role. We need those dollars to come from either federal or state governments to be able to provide that subsidy. The private sector is not going to do it. The private sector is not going to provide housing for individuals who are disabled, who have mental health challenges, who can't afford a market rent, and then provide support services for them as well. It's got to be a government subsidy. Where that comes from, it's got to come from somewhere. We spend a lot more money jailing people who have substance abuse issues and mental health issues. If we took some of those dollars and somehow were able to divert them into supportive services to help prevent some of the issues that are happening in society right now and had that roof over their head, we'd be in a lot better shape as a society, I believe. So with that, thank you. I'm glad to be back in Coral Gables for the second time in 2 months, and thank you for the invitation.
Density, it gets further complicated. Density is part of the solution, however. More units you build, the more possibilities you have to, even within that building, to be able to afford the mixed income that you want within that building. Because and depending on the neighborhood you're in, but some of the unrestricted units that now you can put in some of those additional units that you're building there, the penthouse, those rents can help subsidize the lower rents for the folks who need it from workforce housing. Excuse me. But the developer is still going to be able to make their profit. That's another thing, right? They have to make their profit. They're not in this to do this for free. So another complicating factor. And so everybody in the final analysis runs to the federal government for money, which is why we left Regional Administrator Jennifer Collins to be the last person to speak, so she could just write checks to everybody for now. See, we've worked in the federal side too, and we know that even though there's a lot of money invested from the federal government in many, many programs, still not enough. Money is not the only solution, right? We have to find other ways to leverage the money. But the federal government really does help tremendously in that effort. So I turn it, so let me just say one word. So Sir R.A. Collins, 32 years in the U.S. Armed Services as an intelligence officer. Thank you for your service. You too, Armando. Thank you for your service. Served 7 years in the Coast Guard. So she now is decided to strike out on a career after she was a lawyer for some time in Mississippi. She struck out on a career where she said she wanted to help good people do good things for other good people. And that is the essence of remembering why we're here. And that is the essence of showing respect for the people we serve by understanding that they're good people too. They may be poor, but they're good people too, right? So I was born and raised in public housing in New York City, and I did not want to be governed by my zip code, but 10029 didn't have a lot of folks graduating from college. So thank God for my mom and dad, I was able to overcome that zip code, but we need to do what we can to change those neighborhoods. And Ms. Collins, please.
So I'll take it from there. Thank you so very much. Again, I am Jennifer Raleigh Collins, the brand new Regional Administrator for HUD, for the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, for those of you who don't know what HUD is. I will tell you, I'm not going to stand up and I have to go ahead and give an apology early to my ancestors, to my mother and my grandmother, who did not allow me to bring paper to the podium when we said the speech. We never got the welcome everyone short speech. We always had the long speech, and we had to learn it by heart. But because I am brand new, I brought my notes to the podium because there are some things I want to share as we answer the question about how we are having policies at the federal government to address the issue of affordable housing. But before I delve into that question, I do want to echo what Ms. Cobb said and thank the University of Miami for your partnership. I thank my HUD colleagues who are present here this evening, Mr. David, who has recently joined the space with Community Planning and Development Office from HUD. And so I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited about this opportunity that highlights and brings educational awareness to the need to increase affordable housing. Under the leadership of Secretary Fudge, HUD is committed to its prioritization of the efforts to do just that, to increase affordable housing. We believe that everyone deserves a stable and secure place to call home. And because of that, in the last few years, HUD has demonstrated its commitment. In the last 3 years, HUD programs have served or permanently housed more than 1.2 million people experiencing homelessness. Since the start of the Biden-Harris administration, the FHA has supported nearly 1.5 million first-time home buyers with purchasing a home. Since 2021, HUD has worked across its programs to build and repair more than 500,000 units of affordable housing. Our agency directly serves more than 9 million people monthly in every corner of this nation through our rental assistance program, which also supports the private and public rental markets. We acknowledge that especially post the pandemic and honestly the end of those protective policies, that there has been an increase in the need to expand opportunities of affordable housing. It has been estimated that there is a shortfall of 1.5 million houses nationwide. I like to say 1.5 million homes, because that's where people's hearts are. This shortfall burdens families' budgets, drive up inflation, and limits economic growth. The hardest hit by those stats are our low-income and moderate-income families. You don't just have to be poor to have a need for affordable housing. As Secretary Fudge has pointed out, there is not, however, a one-size-fits-all solution to this problem. There must be coordination, as you pointed out, Armando, and collaboration at all levels of government. That is why the Biden-Harris administration encourages local leaders to review and reform zoning and land use policies. In support of this approach, the Biden-Harris administration introduced the Housing Supply Action Plan. The plan's central goal is an economy where everyone has access to a safe and affordable home. As part of this plan, HUD launched an $85 million program to award grants up to $10 million in efforts to jurisdictions with an acute affordable housing need. The goal is to remove the roadblocks as land use laws and zoning regulations that limit where and how densely housing can be built, just as you addressed. We must also think innovatively, and so I'm loving this conversation about how utilization of unprecedented investments can be made available. Under the Biden-Harris administration, we have seen once-in-a-lifetime investments through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. For instance, when we think about innovation, we think about the resources through our partner agency, the United States Department of Transportation, how it has integrated affordable housing into its programs, how EPA has tapped in and EDA has tapped in. And so we encourage you to look across, because again, there is not a one-size-fits-all solution. The Biden-Harris administration has also provided new financing for affordable, energy efficient, and climate resilient housing and energy investments. HUD is making, as a result of that, a $830 million investment in grants and loan subsidies available to modernize existing HUD-assisted affordable homes so that they remain available. HUD is also promoting, just as you did, the commercial to residential conversions. So we encourage local governments to look at that which used to be a commercial building or an old hotel and convert that property into affordable homes. And through events like this, and I absolutely loved what you said because you stole my last point, we must always encourage our neighbors to reject a not in my neighborhood, not in my backyard approach. We must make sure that we always keep at the forefront of our thoughts and the forefront of our efforts as stakeholders, that those people that we are trying to block are people too. And everyone just wants to make sure that they and their children are able to grow up in a safe place and that their elderly parents continue to have a place that they can call home. Thank you for allowing HUD to participate this evening.
Yeah, I think the city of West Palm Beach deserves like a bonus from HUD or something.
Get in line, brother. Get in line. So I was told by Sonia that due to the fact that the moderator took too much time, that we only have time for like 1 or 2 questions. But to please understand that the panelists will be hanging around and sharing and imbibing and be available for one-on-ones afterwards. So, but we do have time to take 1 or 2 questions. If anyone, please don't be shy. Yes.
Hello, thank you all for being here. I really appreciated being a part of or being able to listen to the discussion. I know there was a lot of discussion about your zip code determining your future in life, and that's why affordable housing is an extremely important conversation. I'm just wondering how we get funding to extend beyond housing and also to the community parks, the community schools that you then end up at in addition to housing. Is that something that HUD is able to work with other public entities to improve as we're improving housing, or is that a separate conversation that you can't really address at the same time?
So I think that is a conversation amongst all the stakeholders at all levels, right? So when you think about who owns the land and the impact, you have to address all the stakeholders. You have to address the local, the county, well, I'm going to say the municipal, the county, the state, and the federal. There are programs available through Safe Streets and Thriving Communities that local communities can look at to help ensure that we are building affordable homes in places, again, where people call home. And you call home your whole neighborhood. It's not just the house.
And just to add to that, one federal program and a HUD program that can help with some of the infrastructure and parks and that is the Community Development Block Grant Program, which has been around for what, 50 years now? I don't know how long it's been around, over 50. And so that is one of the most flexible programs that there are out there, grant programs for local governments to use that comes from the federal government. But, I think the challenge is also not just improving the neighborhoods where the zip codes that are low income. That's I think a given. I think it's also providing opportunities for individuals who may be lower income to be able to move and live in centers where there is a lot of commerce already happening and there is a lot of economic development. One thing I point out in a lot of the neighborhoods that we go to that are challenged, that have lower incomes, is I always bring a pie chart or some graph that shows the amount of federal, local, and state dollars that have been invested in the neighborhood. It's usually significant. I mean, there's usually a lot of dollars invested in parks, in policing especially, in roads. The one missing factor is the private investment. And it's typically because of safety and security issues in that neighborhood. So you've got to create the environment in those neighborhoods for the private investment to come, because the public sector can just not do it alone. There has to be that four-wheeled wagon to make it happen.
Anybody else? Okay, next question. I've been chastised enough for talking too much, so next question. I'm only joking, by the way. Sonia did not say that to me.
She said 3 questions.
So have a really quick question because we're looking at policies, and for the point that you made at the very end, Ms. Collins, Regional Administrator Collins, and that is that the Biden administration recognizes that the ways in which we are building our cities is sometimes getting in the way of our being able to do our job of providing decent housing for everyone across our cities. As a person who's been in the world of urban design for quite a long time, I know that that zoning is in fact something that impedes our progress in that sense, and perhaps looking at how we used to make cities once upon a time where we weren't segregating people and building types as a means of creating predictable and places for bankers and others in the finance world to know how to invest their monies. I think that there are lessons for us that we can build upon and perhaps retrieve to facilitate that pathway towards being more equitable in the ways in which we design and build our cities and our housing, so that we're no longer referring to it necessarily as affordable housing, because it's everywhere. Its affordability would be ingrained in all of our communities, whether it's along main streets as apartments above a commercial space or as a added dwelling unit in a part of another residence. There are so many different ways in which we can build affordability into our community without segregating our families. So I wanted to ask all of you your thoughts related to this, to build upon it. I was so heartened to hear you all speak about flexibility. Dolores, you mentioned how we have to be thinking outside of the box. So how are some of the ways in which we can be thinking outside of the box related to this issue, and perhaps those that are sort of satellites around this topic? Thank you very much. And then anyone else, if there's one more question, we'll take it right before we close. But please.
So one way that we can address this issue and ensure that our communities are inclusive is to think about when we're build around transit lines, right? Because not everyone is going to have a car, right? But if people are able to get back and forth to work and get to school, then they'll be more included in the community. And so building homes around transit lines is one of the things that we're really encouraging.
Design is so key. Design of cities, design of buildings. You're at the School of Architecture, and how cities and buildings are designed makes them not only more integrated into the greater neighborhood, but also more sustainable. But old habits are hard to break, and you're in ingrained neighborhoods. It is very difficult for local governments sometimes to make the changes that we even know we have to make. You look at this courtyard and you have two buildings. If all of a sudden these were residential buildings and you wanted to somebody decided to tear this one down and go up another 10 stories to create more density and maybe affordability, these folks are like, I don't want that shadow on my house. So those are the kind of discussions and arguments that local governments have to deal with. And of course, a local government is a political animal. It's run by elected officials who are responsive to their constituents. And so as much as the social media chatter sometimes I see is City of West Palm Beach or Miami-Dade County, what are you guys doing about workforce housing, affordable housing? But those folks aren't showing up to the meetings and challenging everything we try to do to make flexibility built into our communities so they're more sustainable.
I think what both of you said about zoning, I mean, as a urban planner, that's the language that you learn in planning school. And so, hopefully, I was there 20 years ago. I hope that and from what I see, there's a lot of resistance to, and that's kind of how cities are built. I mean, you go to Rome, there's ruins, there's new things built on top of it. But this is an urgent moment because there's so much inequity, and there's so much of that is built into our government policies, our old government policies that remain. We see things like redlining, zoning, practices that were, in some cases nearly 100 years ago, and they're still how cities are built. They're still how our cities, function. And I think there's a real opportunity for designers, architects, planners to be disruptive here. And I think, and I've seen, I think there's a real appetite. I mean, I don't want to speak for any, but in my dealings with local government here, I think there's a real curiosity and interest in finding ways to incentivize development that is more equitable. So,
and a good way of incentivizing the private sector to facilitate is thinking it in reverse. Incentivize, if you lower costs, you get more of a subsidy, and you'll see how fast the cost of construction starts to come down if you think it backwards. One of the challenges that we have is we're one of the most expensive places, if not the most expensive place in the country to build, because we build under the South Florida Building Code. Everything you see here is in concrete. We don't build here in wood. And, traditionally South Florida, Miami, there's always a problem somewhere in Latin America, South America, and we always have that influx. What happened after COVID is we had a domestic immigration, all these New Yorkers, right? I'm just kidding, right? It started coming here and the Northeasterners. So it actually created more of that demand and supply imbalance that we have here. So we're a little bit behind the curve right now, but data is showing that going into 2024, we're actually going to have more supply than absorption. Now, the rents aren't going to go down 30% because we are facing real market factors that real estate is big business. Multifamily is big business, right? So they're not going to, unless they are incentivized to provide that, that's what we have to start thinking. How do we make them more efficient, more effective to tap into our resources to build more housing?
So I think part of it is the word appetite is building a constituency or broadening the constituency for folks who actually pressure that political structure to build more affordable housing. And we see that happening in part because we're broadening the constituency to include workforce housing, which is when you put it in those terms, when you're saying to someone, there's not just poor people. This is teachers, this is police officers, this is firefighters, this is nurses. These are the folks that we're serving. We're broadening the constituency to the point where the state passes this whole live local stuff that increases density, allows increased density, as long as you have a certain percentage of units set aside for workforce. So that's one way that when you say you sense that there's a higher appetite, there's a higher appetite because we're broadening the constituency, because we've actually broadened the need, right? So it's not just a poor people thing anymore. It was easier for folks to still want to live in Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal. But we're in Brown versus Board of Education now, right? So separate isn't equal, inherently unequal. And that's why we have to build mixed income communities where everybody has a shot. Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just wanted to mention two initiatives that the county do have. So I know you see some along the train line, you see a housing being built, right? Multifamily. So that is Miami-Dade Transit. That is doing the transit-oriented development, but I think they changed the name along. And some of those developments,
Oriented community.
that's what they changed it to. Thank you. He knows because his department is investing funding. They have a partnership with Transit. We also have a local ordinance for AMSA areas, which is only in Miami-Dade County. We have where you can build a twin homes on your property, and so that can also add to add units and bring units available. So those are just two of the things I just wanted to mention. I know we got to go, but thank you. There you go.
Thank you. I'm going to be quick. I know we mentioned a lot of, we've heard CDBG mentioned a couple on the panel. So I just wanted to say that we currently have a proposed rule out that's current. So if you go on the Federal Register, we have a proposed rule to revise the current CDBG and Section 108 loan. And it's I'm going to read here. To make it easier for recipients to promote economic development and recovery in low and moderate income communities and support investment in underserved areas. And so comments are due by March 11th of this year. So please, if you're interested, recipients, please go on and read the proposed rule for revised changes to CDBG and Section 108 loan.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next stage, right, Sonia?
Absolutely. And so I'm going to start by thanking our moderator, who's done a great job. Thank you, Jose, and all of our distinguished guests. I don't know about you all, but I often think that our government servants don't get enough credit for their commitment and their work. It's arduous, it's thankless a lot of times, and I think that we should give them a big round of applause for thanking them for actually doing what they do every day. So thank you all. As I mentioned, this is the first in the series of this semester, and the next one, next Thursday at 6, is Beyond the Bottom Line. What are the socioeconomic repercussions of losing affordable housing? That session will be moderated by Hannah Eskra, president of Murray Development Partners, and by our Professor Chuck Bowl from the Masters of Real Estate and Urban Development program here at the School of Architecture. They will be joined by Robin Bakken, the founding director of the University of Miami's Office of Civic and Community Engagement, and by Nicole Crooks, the Overtown Community Engagement Partner of Catalyst Miami, and Mr. Albert Milo, Senior Vice President for Related Urban Development Group, which is the arm of Related that actually works on affordable housing projects. Thank you all for being with us here today. I hope you'll join us again. These lectures, by the way, at the very end of the series will be compilated by Raymond San Cristobal, who is here recording for us. And once that is completed, they will be uploaded onto the University of Miami's Core Lab. That's the lab that I have the pleasure of leading and partner with Madeline Leon. And it's a Coastal Resilience webpage. And so all of these lectures will be on there for your future reference. We hope you'll think of that archive as a resource for you in the future. So thank you all for being here, and please join us for some drinks and nibbles, and join us in conversations with our esteemed guests. I want to thank Dean Okuri once again for his fantastic job leading our School of Architecture, because without his leadership and vision, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we do. So thank you very much, Dean Okuri. All right, that's it. Oh, no, that's not it.
One more thing, because why this is very important, what you just mentioned, Hannah Eskra. This is all a small world of the affordable housing world. They partnered up with not only Miami-Dade County, but U.S. HUD, and they just within a $40 million grant to do a choice neighborhood implementation. So all of this is all intertwined. Albert Milo related, we were at a groundbreaking yesterday for one of our public housing redevelopments. So all of it takes, apart from all of the participants that are really focused in and having these conversations and coming up with solutions, because production does occur from these type of events. Just wanted to make sure.
Thank you so much for that added comment. So on behalf of Gloria Shanahan, Madeline Lee, and Dino Curry, and myself, I thank you for having been here at the School of Architecture. Please enjoy the rest of your evening.